Hey guys, welcome to the Launchpad, and thanks for joining me with the rest of the Rehab Rebels. If you don't already know, the Rehab Rebels are on a mission to launch out of the rat race, and we're committed to doing it together. If entrepreneurship, real estate, and passive income mean as much to you as they do to us, then you're in the right place. Sit back, buckle up, and prepare for launch. If you're enjoying our episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the Launchpad and like us on Spotify. Just tap one of the links below. By subscribing, you'll get new episodes delivered straight to your library every week. Rick Stanley is not your ordinary appraiser. He's flipped over 10 houses and has owned over 30 rental properties. And in 1985, he began what is now nearly a 30-year career in the appraisal business. About 10 years ago, we started doing business with Rick because he had an understanding of the remodeling industry and he had decades of experience in the appraisal industry. Since then, Rick has done over 800 appraisals for North Oak, and he's here today to teach us more about what an appraisal is, to shed some light on current market conditions, and to give a strategic insight to all of us who are interested in the remodeling business and real estate business in general. So Rick, thank you for joining me today.
Glad to be here.
You actually got your career started working at Xerox, and you began at college, went to Xerox.
That's right.
Can you start us there? How did you go from Xerox to what you're doing now?
Very good. So out of college, I went to work for the computer division of Xerox, which was a great opportunity. But I wasn't working there 3 or 4 months, and I knew that I wanted to be in some form of real estate. So 4 months after I graduated, I bought my first rental house. Actually, it was 2 houses for one when I bought it.
That's a savvy idea. Where did you come up with the idea? Did you have family doing real estate deals?
Yes, my father had been a realtor for many years. So I grew up with real estate and answering the phones on Sunday mornings when people would call when the ads were in the paper on a new house that would come for sale. And, would go to the houses he was building or selling growing up. So I've always been around it. But, when I was 21 or 22 and graduated from college, I had a lot of energy. So, which is one of the things you need, is a lot of energy. And so after I left Xerox, and I would go work on my rental houses at night. And I loved it. It was a lot of fun. Learned, how to sweat a pipe and hang a light fixture and sheetrock and paint and whatever it is, you had to learn it.
Those are valuable lessons to learn if you're going to manage properties. And then ultimately when you got into your appraisal business too, but know, like you said, how to sweat a pipe and all of these technical things that a property needs.
That's right.
It saves you from getting bamboozled by contractors when they're quoting things.
I don't know how the common layperson has their own house repairs done by not understanding some basics of the trades. So it'd be tough. So if you're in this property business, whether rental property or rehabs, that basic understanding is foremost.
So you were working at Xerox full time?
Yes.
And were you flipping or acquiring rentals? What was your approach back then?
The goal was strictly to acquire rentals. Although of those first 2 houses I bought together, I immediately rented one and fixed up the other, and then a year later I sold the rented one for more than I'd paid for the 2. So it kind of got me hooked right at the beginning because I saw the opportunity. It was obvious. So, but the vast majority of them were to just hold on to, and then occasionally there'd be a flip, just because we didn't call them flips back then. I just it'd be an easy one to buy, put a little paint on, repair this and that, and put it back on for more money.
How would you choose a flip versus one that you would hold?
Back then, my criteria was if the house was a nicer home, then I'd turn it. Okay. I just fix it up and sell it, because holding on to rental property, as anybody who has them knows, they get torn up. And I don't care how well you screen the tenants or what sector of society it is, they don't take care of them as well as you'd like. So it was disheartening to fix up these homes, rent them, and then 3 years later go back in and, they're all torn up. I don't mean vandalized, they're just worn down. And so when I found the nicer houses that there was opportunity, then I'd resell them.
Makes sense. Were you doing the management, collecting leases, or collecting rent payments, writing the leases, all of those things?
I did until I got to probably my 8th or 10th house, and then hired a property manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did that go?
That's a tough business, property management.
I hear that all the time. Everyone says it's just kind of a miserable business to hire for, to be in. It's just so
There's no upside there. Yeah, it's a tough business for both the people who own the properties and for the property manager, and often for the tenant too. But there's no great solution there. I never found a great property manager. The one that I have now is pretty good, yeah. But the formers, no, they were not.
So you still have some rental properties today?
Just a couple. Yeah.
Okay, but you got up to over 30. Is that right?
At one point, I had 32 houses and a couple of apartment complexes, and yeah.
How did you end up offloading those? What prompted that decision?
I sold most of them before the financial crisis of '08, and not because I had insight, but it just worked out that way. And the reality is that I started buying in '82, and by 20 years later, by 22 or 24 or 2002 or 2004, I was tired of them. And even though if you have a property manager, there's still a tremendous amount of owner involvement and work. It's not a passive investment. It's definitely an active. So when one would come vacant, we'd go in and fix it up a little and put it on the market for sale. And after we started that, then we got a little rhythm on doing that. So we just slowly sold them all off.
Sure.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day leading up to this meeting,
yeah.
And you told me about some criteria that you had picking a property. One of the things that you mentioned was a functional floor plan.
That's correct.
Can you talk about that? Why did that become something that you were looking for?
As my dad said, who was a realtor for 40 plus years, he goes, some houses have futures and some don't. And a lot of times when you're out looking for houses to buy for rental or for a rehab, you'll have lots of opportunities of properties that are just all cut up, or they're little shacks, or they got low ceilings, or the bedroom is right inside the front door. They're just functional problems that don't make for a good home. And so I quickly learned, I bought several like that. I made my mistakes, but that if you stay away and buy the property that has a functional floor plan and is standard, is just a straightforward house, nothing fancy about it, you will be able to sell it. And after you've done all your work for your clients, then it makes sense to sell. So if you have a house that doesn't have a future, in other words, I don't care how much work and love you put into it, those are the houses you have to stay away from.
So what happened on the ones that had the bad floor plan, bad location? That you just got stuck on the market, had to drop your price lower than you wanted? What happened? What was the end result? Well,
that's right. Not only were they hard to rent, yeah, but then when you went to sell them, you said, well, it's a 3-bedroom, and all the 3 bedrooms are selling for this much. But if it's got a bad floor plan or low ceilings or many other disqualifications, then it won't sell in the value range of all the other 3 bedrooms. It'll sell for less. So everything has a price or a value, but it may not be as good. On paper, it looks like the same, but when you see their problems inside the house.
You can't just look at three beds and 2 baths and know what it's worth. There's all of these other things that have to be considered.
Absolutely, yes.
So how did you get into the appraisal business? You had 30 rentals. Mm-hmm. You were doing some flips. You're working at Xerox. Yeah. Sounds like things are rocking and rolling. Yeah. Why not stick with that? And how did you get into the appraisal business?
Well, that was through my dad. He had been a realtor for over 40 years. I don't quite know how long, and had basically retired. And for something to do, he started to appraise houses. And he got busy because the interest rates had just dropped under 12%. And because they had for a long time, been above 15, for 5 or 6 years, they were above 15%. Below 12 was unbelievably low interest rate.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. Market. And he had, at the time, he was working with FHA, with HUD, and he would get orders in the mail every day, and he just got overwhelmed. So I went over to help him one day, just get organized, because he literally had a pile of requests on top of the piano, because he was retired. He didn't have a desk. And so I helped him get organized and kind of get his stuff together. And I mentioned to him one day, I said, Dad, if you did this like a business, you could make pretty good money. And he said, well, I'm retired. I don't want to do that. And so a couple of days later, he called and said, well, would you be interested in learning the business? And we'll be partners for 2 years, which is our agreement, and we'll split everything 50-50. And then after that, I'll kind of go back into retirement, and you take over. And that's how it happened. I wish there was great forethought. And I was in the microcomputer industry before the IBM PC came out. But I didn't have the foresight to know where it would be today.
Sounds like you and your dad had some foresight with your business plan that you laid out. That was a clever idea to say, hey, we're going to get into business, and 2 years out, we're going to split everything 50-50. Yeah. It's a smart way to go into a business relationship.
It worked out well, yeah. Well, I was a son, too. So
was that his idea?
That was his idea.
That was smart. Yeah. It's just to then you knew what the plan was, and it just answers some of those questions up front.
That's right. And he trained me, in the old school ways of, doing the appraisals correctly, and having the integrity to call a spade a spade. So, which I think has been key for our long existence in the industry. So
there are several misperceptions of appraisers and appraisals. People think that appraisers or appraisals are all the same. Is that true? That all appraisers and appraisals are the same?
Well, within any industry, let's start with, there's always a difference between vendors, whether it's mortgage companies or bankers or any industry at all, plumbers. But the appraisal industry, that is extremely true that there are differences. To start with, an appraisal is not a exact science, Tommy. It's not like there is a hard number, this house is worth, $270. Appraisals are an opinion of value, and they're best stated as a range of value. So in a perfect world, you wouldn't say a house worth $270. You'd say, well, it's between $262 and $275, for example. And that's the way they'll do on most appraisals and other industries that do appraisals. But in real estate, because of the nature of lending and people wanting to buy and sell on a regular basis,
they want a fixed number.
You have to have a hard number.
Yeah.
You can't give a range.
Yeah.
So we're asked to do a fixed number, which is fine. That's just the way the industry is.
I've heard people sometimes say, well, the house appraised for $275. Why can I not sell it? It appraised for that much. And what would you say to someone who's stomping their feet saying something like that?
Well, several reasons. The first one, it's an opinion. Mm-hmm. So one guy says $275, another one says $265. Okay, hard to tell which one's right. Until it goes on the market, and then the market often will tell you what the real value of the house is. So in normal times, if a house is for sale for 30 to 60 days, you will get enough comments and feedback. And if you're not getting a contract, it's clearly overpriced, regardless of what the appraisal says or the hard figures say. So
you say it's an opinion,
yes.
and that sounds like it's just willy-nilly.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a willy-nilly opinion, or is it how do you arrive at this opinion?
Yes, and that's one of the things you were talking about, people misunderstanding what appraisers do. So it is an opinion, but it's based on the best available data available.
Okay.
So, for example, we use something called comparables, as you know, and a comparable property is nothing more than a house that is similar that recently sold. So if we've got a 3-bedroom bungalow, we look at other 3-bedroom bungalows in the area and see what they sold for. Well, this is all objective data. Okay, so we know number of bedrooms, how big it is, what the condition is, what the location is. That's all objective things that we can use to base our opinion of value. There's other subjective things that are a little more difficult to put objective numbers on, condition being one. If you're picking houses from grossly different locations, it's really hard to subjectively know what the difference is or to objectively determine that. So that's why appraisers like to stay in close proximity and similar locations.
How close do you need to be? Is there a rule that's hard and fast? You have to be X amount of miles or something like that? Or how does that work?
Exactly. So there's two factors here. One is what the industry guidelines are. And the industry guidelines say up to a mile.
Up to a mile. Okay.
So if you use that up to a mile guideline, you've got a pretty big perimeter that you can go to.
Yeah.
The problem with a guideline like that, though, is it may allow for abuse.
Yeah.
In other words, if there are 9 good similar homes right in your subdivision, all within 5 blocks, why would you be going a mile away to find other houses that might support a higher value, for example?
Makes me think of Troost. You get something that's right there on the line on Troost, and then a mile away, it could be a vastly different market.
For sure. Vastly different.
But is it legal to pull a comp from a mile away from that house on Troost?
It is. There really isn't a term legal as to what the appraisers can do. We're giving some latitude because under the basic ethics of what an appraiser does, we're supposed to make an unbiased opinion based on the best data available. So a knowledgeable appraiser would not be taking houses from the east side of, if he's appraising a house on the east side of town, he wouldn't be picking one that's closer to state line for a comparable, because anyone in the industry would know that that's not apples to apples, okay, because you've changed locations so much. Yeah. So
what about the proximity and time?
Okay, so the proximity is that 1 mile variable, but the majority of appraisals, back to the location and distance, is ideally they are from the same subdivision, or at least the same market, or the same school district, or the same areas where the value ranges of the homes sell that are similar. Okay. So that's proximity.
Okay.
The time-wise, again, the industry guidelines like to have sales that have occurred within the last 6 months.
6 months, okay.
Or up to a year, depending on what's available.
Okay.
So one of the more refined guidelines to that, Tommy, is real estate is cyclical. So it is every season, every spring season, we get a new crop of sales. That's when the majority of the homes sell. Uh-huh. So if you have homes from the previous fall, they may show a different value than the spring sales that are more current. So if you're doing a house appraisal in June, you'd like to get them all from that spring market of 2024, because if you go back to the fall of 23, that could show a lower value. Mm-hmm. Now, there have been years where the inverse was true. So in 2012, if you used a sale from last fall, it would have shown a higher sale value than in the spring of the next year, because values were going down quite rapidly in that era.
On a property like one of ours that we're making a loan on,
yeah,
you're appraising not the as-is value, you're appraising the after-repaired value.
That's right.
I've had some people unfamiliar with the industry wonder if that's even a legitimate appraisal.
Right.
Is that a common appraisal? Is that something that just only Stanley Appraisal does, or is that a common appraisal?
It's very common appraisal. And, one analogy to that is when a builder wants to build a new home, there's nothing there but dirt. Mm-hmm. So we will get in nothing but the plans from the architect, and then what they call specs, which tells us all the different quality and types of elements that are going into the home. So it's pretty straightforward. I mean, we've got what the house size and what's going to look like and all the finishes on a new home. And so we appraise it based on that. And in that scenario, we're probably in a subdivision with other new homes that are very similar. So it's pretty easy to imagine what they're going to build. In the case of your borrowers and what you guys, your niche is a very similar format, because if you're loaning on a 3-bedroom bungalow, for example, and it's all torn up and it's trashed, and that's fine. We go inspect it to see how big it is and what the layout is, but it's based on what the appraiser or what the investor is going to do. And through your system, you have the spreadsheet that allows us to itemize exactly everything they're going to do, so that we get a basis for a clear picture. So at the time we do the inspection, we meet with your investor, and we go through that spreadsheet line by line, and we say, well, okay, so you got here new kitchen cabinets, countertops, and appliances. And it's pretty small detail there. Sure. But we will have a verbal conversation finding out what kind of cabinets and what kind of counters, what kind of appliances, how thorough that is. If they're going to keep the cabinets, are they going to paint them? Are they going to refinish them? Are they going to put new doors on, new hardware, to get a best picture in our mind as to what the finished product will look like? And if we can establish that, then doing the appraisal as repaired is easy.
So you look at, assuming you have a clear picture of what this person intends to do.
That's right.
Then you're looking at the subject. You're imagining it with all of these repairs. And then you're going around and you're trying to find something in the neighborhood, ideally, within the last 6 months,
yes,
that matches that description.
Perfect. Yes.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah. It's not rocket science.
And what if you can't find a house what if this is the only 2-bed house in the neighborhood? Everything else is 3-bed, 2-bath.
Right.
You find this one, it matches the description, but you're lacking the bedroom. How do you adjust for that?
So that scenario is quite common, in different formats. So there's 2 main things that appraisers would hope to illustrate in that scenario. The first one is values of homes in the area. Okay, so if the 2-bedroom house you're talking about was 900 feet and all the 3 bedrooms mostly were 1,000 to 1,300 feet, we'd want to find some of the houses that are closest in size to the subject, even though they may have 3 bedrooms, that are in close proximity, so we're supporting location. We're saying, look, the houses in this area, even though they're bigger and more bedrooms, sell for this much, and that's the locational factor. Then we'll go outside of the subdivision to find 2-bedroom homes that are similar in size and functional utility. Okay. That bedroom difference is a big, big topic between 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, because it is it's a what they call a functional difference. Okay. In other words, there's buyers that must have 3 bedrooms or must have 4 bedrooms, and they would never consider a 2-bedroom. So there is a difference in value in the marketplace between those things.
Are you saying, am I understanding this right, that you're looking at the subject property's neighborhood?
That's correct.
You're finding another house that might be 3 beds, even though the subject is 2.
Correct.
You're identifying what the cost per foot is of that property. Then you're going into an adjacent neighborhood that might have a different value, and you're figuring out what the cost per square foot is on a 3-bed versus a 2-bed in that neighborhood, and looking at the difference?
You're in the ballpark.
Okay.
Okay, so appraisers do not think in terms of per square foot.
Okay.
Ever.
Okay.
Okay. They do in other cities for condos, largely, but houses very, very seldom, if ever. So conceptually, you were correct. We're looking for the 3-bedroom homes that prove location in our area. And then when we go outside of the area, we're looking in similar areas,
okay,
where houses sell in the similar value range, but there are 2-bedroom home sales available.
Okay.
And then we make adjustments for all the differences, whether it's square feet, number of bathrooms, condition, all those things.
Okay. So you're looking at how much that house, the 2-bed house in this adjacent neighborhood, because you can't find one in the one you're in. Ideally, you're looking for another 2-bed in your own neighborhood. If you see that, you're good.
Perfect world is right across the street is the identical house.
Right.
And that's always the best comparable.
Okay.
Even if it doesn't meet the criteria of the investor's wish for value.
Okay.
Okay. So our charge is not to make a value. So if it's, well, I need 200 to get my loan from North Oak, that's our charge is not to make your deal. Our charge is to tell the truth.
Right.
So that not only is North Oak, who's making the loan, safe, but so are you, Mr. Investor.
Right.
We're trying to help you make good, solid real estate investment decisions.
Yep. On that subject property, if you found a 3-bed in the adjacent neighborhood and it sold for $175, and then you found a 2-bed in that neighborhood and it's a similar price neighborhood and it sold for $160.
Yes.
You would say, okay, a bedroom is approximately worth $15,000 in neighborhoods similar to this.
You've got the basic concept. That's exactly right. And if you understand that basic concept of appraisal, you're well on your way.
If you're enjoying our episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the Launchpad and like us on Spotify. Just tap one of the links below. By subscribing, you'll get new episodes delivered straight to your library every week. You meet with a lot of our clients.
That's right.
A lot of them know what they're doing. They're seasoned veterans.
For sure, yeah.
Some of them don't have any idea what they're doing.
That's right.
And we let a couple of them slip through the cracks, and sometimes we know who we're dealing with, and we'll give them a good conservative loan, and we'll help hold their hand and kind of coach them through the process.
That's right.
But from your perspective, can you see the seasoned people and the amateurs from a mile away?
We can, and you probably can too, Tommy. But when you're at the property and you're going through the spreadsheet on what they're going to do to the home, the seasoned veteran is, number one, he's picked out a good house. Okay. My dad always said, and I totally agree with you, when you're in this business, the money is not made doing all the work and the fix-up. The money is made when you buy the house. Yeah. And so if you're going to spend any time on anything, it's not sheetrock and paint. It's hunting for a good opportunity. Look at 30 houses, make offers on 10, negotiate on 4, and get 2. That's really where your money needs to be made. Back to your question, is that the seasoned veteran will buy a good house, and then he understands the infrastructure of the house, and he knows that the foundation need repair, and the plumbing needs to be updated, and the wiring and the insulation, and the windows aren't up to par, and all the different things that are not that glorious that need to be repaired.
It's not the exciting HGTV backsplash that's got this fancy stuff that's on sale at IKEA, and they're not talking about that.
They're not talking about that. That's exactly right. But since last 10, 15 years with all the TV shows where people go in and they flip this house or they remodel, and it's a lot of fun, and those are great. Those are fun shows to watch. I agree. Yeah. But all those things you just mentioned, the pretty stuff, is not what the real savvy investor is concerned about. He'll talk about that, and it's on his list, and of course he'll do that because that helps sell the property. Sure. But he understands that he's got to spend $20,000 on all this unglorious stuff first.
Yeah. And he's talking about it.
Oh,
you're hearing him kind of thinking through it while you're there at the house with
and
him.
It's on the list.
Yeah.
So the new person who may be a little bit out of school or just has not had enough experience, let's say that, it's not that they don't want to do job, they just don't know the questions they don't know. Okay, so then you can kind of help them through it a little bit, kind of explain it to them. We don't want to do their jobs for them. We want to do the appraisal based on what they want to accomplish. But if there are major things like a foundation that clearly needs repair, we will talk to them about that. We'll talk to you about that. So
that comes back to us on the list that you guys will fill those things out. So you
sure.
kind of have your feelers up when you're talking to this person.
That's right.
You're looking at the scope, and if there are glaring things missing from the list, you're adding those.
Oh, for certain.
Okay.
Yes. And if they're big things, we'll call the lender, in this case you, just to verbally make sure that you know what's going on, because it's a big deal.
Yep.
And we don't want it to be lost in the text of the appraisal somewhere.
Yep, yep.
When things get real fevered like they've been for the last 5-6 years, you get people that are desperate to find deals or properties to flip, and they will lower their standards on what a good house is just to get activity, to keep their crews busy and make it, well, we won't make as much, but we're going to make some. And that's, we even see a multitude of buyers buying property unseen. And, houses are not all equal. So that's why some of these things aren't on the list that needs to be repaired.
You mentioned the current market conditions and the mania that's been going on.
Right.
Are we in the same market that we were a year ago, 2 years ago? Is this market changing currently? What's going on in the market?
Yes, it is changing. And these are all rough figures, Tom, but between 2 and 6 years ago, the values were just going straight up. Every month they were going up, and in numbers far in excess of historical appreciation numbers. So to give you some scope, historically, a residential real estate will go up between 2 to 3% a year, and that's a good pace of value increases. But there was a period of 3 to 4 years there where it wasn't even 5%; it was 8% or 10% a year, and in some pockets, in excess of that, going up year after year, and it was just unhealthy. It was going up so quickly. So in the last 2 years, we've returned to a little bit more normal, where values are still going up. They're still going up at a pace greater than historic. So it's above the 2 to 3%. It's probably more in the 4 to 5%. So that's one thing. And the second thing is they're not increasing every month. They're returning more to a seasonal change in value. Okay. And as you well know, historically, values will jump in the spring because sellers and buyers both come to market. Okay, then they'll level off during the summer months. They'll sag a little bit in the winter, cold months. This is here in Kansas City, so not on national level. And then they'll jump again in the spring, and then the same pattern will continue. That's a healthy, balanced market.
And it wasn't that way over these last few years?
No, it was just
up.
Up. It was just craziness.
So you see that seasonality returning right now?
Yes, and that's really I think a healthy, good thing for the marketplace, because that mania that we had, if it continued, would very possibly result in a crash where they go up so fast and then they hit hard. But it's hard to say what's going to happen, and I'm no predictor of the future. But I think there's healthy signs to say we're returning to closer to a balanced market in terms of marketing time, or we're getting there. Just the fact that the value patterns are seasonal is a good sign. We still have an undersupply, and values are still going up.
What's the supply sitting at right now?
We are just about 2.5 months, between 2 and 2.5 months. Okay. So let's put that in perspective, okay? So what we're talking about is supply and demand. Some people call it inventory. Okay, the inventory is the amount of houses for sale at any given time. In a balanced market, your inventory is between 5 and 6 months of supply. In other words, to sell everything through, you'd have that many houses for sale. Well, we're now about 2 and 2.25, something like that. But during the mania years, we were, less than a month. And so it's getting better, it's increasing, but it's still very low compared to that 5 to 6 months, which is a balanced market. Okay. And in a perfect world, Tom, we would get to that balanced market, so we will stabilize. Okay, we don't want to shoot right back up. And in the 08 to 012 era, to give you some perspective on the other side, inventory levels were not balanced at 5 or 6; they were 9 to 12 months.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of supply.
Oh yeah, in some markets it was 2 years.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
it was,
Wow.
there was just so much for sale. And when that happens, values plummet. And there were certain areas of town where they just fell to the ground because there was so much to pick from that the investors or whoever coming into the market to buy, why would, you're asking that much, but I'm going to throw you this lowball offer.
Right.
And people would take it because they'd know there's 30 other houses right out in the subdivision that they can go buy instead of theirs.
It's a lot different climate than what we're sitting in right now.
Oh, it's night and day. Yes, complete opposite. Yeah. But the point is those cycles exist also. And everyone always thinks it's real estate's going to go up, and it historically over time does go up, but it does go down during some periods too.
What are some factors that are producing this low supply climate that we have?
It's a great topic, and of which many people have debated, and there's many very small reasons. There's not one solid answer, Tommy. The low interest rates, of course, that we've had before this most recent bump in the last 18 months or 2 years, brought so many buyers to the market that it made it more affordable to buy a house than to rent a house. So a lot of your renters became buyers because interest rates were so low, that was a very good decision. One of the other elements that has occurred since the 2012 era is before that time, they built starter homes that were small enough that people could afford. Let's say 1,200 feet or less, 1,300 feet or less. Today, they don't build those homes at all. They haven't built them since 2012.
Yeah, that's so true. Just driving around town, I can't remember the last time I saw a new starter home.
That's correct.
I mean, you see apartments, you see townhomes going up, but you don't see, quarter-acre lot with a 1,000-square-foot house on it, brand new. You just don't see that anymore.
You don't see it at all.
Yeah.
And you usually see it on the outlying areas of Kansas City, Gardner, Blue Springs, wherever it is. And they'd be huge subdivisions. Tract homes is what they call them. But you don't see that now. The smallest home you see built is around 2,000 feet. And, just by the size alone, those are going to be substantially more expensive homes. So what that does is that when it was a 1,200 square foot home, the first time buyer could buy it. But if it's a 2,200 square foot home, they can't afford it. So they don't buy the new homes. They go back to the resale market. And so you got even more people going back into the existing home market or the resale market, which puts more pressure on too many buyers for too few homes, so values keep going up. So I think those are the two biggest factors.
Do you see new construction ramping up to fill that void?
You don't see the new construction ramping up to fill the void of the first-time buyer. Okay. Now, there are first-time buyers buying those 2,000 or 2,400 square foot homes, but that's not the bulk of the market. Right. That's double income, often college educated. You got to be making some pretty good money to buy a $450,000 house, which is about what the new homes start at now.
Sounds like for someone who is minding their P's and Q's and buying the right house with the proper functional floor plan, making sure they don't pay too much. I mean, if you follow the rubric, it's a good time to be revitalizing older starter homes.
For sure. Absolutely. The demand is great. Yeah, because there's no new construction that's competing against you or even close. So there's great opportunity to buy and sell houses.
What would your advice be to someone who wants to participate in that, but they're green? They're not a seasoned veteran. They might be the HGTVer who is interested in the backsplash, but they want to be better than that. They want to be a pro. How would you advise that person? You
need experience is what it boils down to.
How do you get the experience without getting your clock cleaned?
Exactly. So when you're becoming an investor to do what your clients do, in a perfect world, you get experience buying and selling houses. Well, how do you do that? And on renovating homes. So a lot of the times what you'll see is people get in this industry will be tradesmen or at least handymen or people that know people in those business, so that portion of the project, the fix-up part of it, they at least have knowledge of. Okay. The second, one of the real things they can do is go to work for somebody that does that kind of work.
That's a genius life hack. Not only are you having someone else teach you all of the pitfalls, you're getting paid for it.
That's right.
I mean, you're on the job training and you're getting paid for it. How many years would you recommend a person do that in order to kind of fill their head with enough knowledge to go out and start doing their own deals?
At least a couple.
Couple of years.
At least a couple. And the reason is you need to learn not only the basics of construction and the pitfalls of fixing up a house, all the way from making your plan and going through the permit process and then working with the subs to get it all completed. But you would also want to see how they find the houses in the first place. Again, it's back to that one basic element where the money's really made, is just because the house is all trashed out and needs work does not make it a good purchase. Okay, you need to understand if the house has a future and then what the value of that house is as it sets.
Have you ever been there looking to buy, back in the day when you were looking to buy properties? That's on your agenda. I need to buy a house. I want to flip one. I want to add another rental. That's what you're out there trying to do. And you're scouring the market, but you're not finding a good deal. Have you ever experienced that? And you start getting the pressure to pull the trigger on something that you know you shouldn't?
Yes, of course. Because you've set goals on what you want to achieve. I don't want to buy. Back then, I would buy 4 or 5 houses a year, whatever it was, for rental purposes. And everybody has kind of this project's ending up. I need to buy another one, so I'm feeling pressure to keep things going. And that's especially a problem right now because there's so few homes for sale. Mm-hmm. So
how do you avoid that trap?
That's just personal control. You just have to be able to know that don't jump on it just because you feel you have to. Wait. Don't make a bad decision. And I've made some bad decisions. So once you've done that several times, I'm not going to buy that house. I don't care if I do need one. I'll just keep looking. In
your experience, those times that you had the self-control to wait, were you rewarded eventually with a good deal? Did you eventually find one that merited your time?
I can't think of specific examples, but I would say so. Just because of all the properties I've purchased, I've made some mistakes, but I haven't made that many. Mm-hmm. So I would have to say, yeah, in time it worked out.
Rick, I appreciate the advice that you've shared with us. Your experience is unique with the appraisal side of it and the property management and these rehabs. I know that anyone who would sit down and take some notes, there's a lot to unpack and to learn if they would just take away some of these nuggets of truth that you've shared. I appreciate you sharing them with us.
Anytime.
The appraisals that you've done over 800 appraisals, and we've tracked your numbers, and you have underestimated the ultimate sale price by about 3 or 4%, which is beautiful. Yeah. It's exactly what we're hoping for,
especially in rising times.
Yeah, right. You've been right there with conservative numbers for us, and you've been a great business partner with us. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Tom.
Hey, Rebels. We'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to rate and review the Launchpad. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you. We'd love to talk with you about how we can help, whether that's financing your next deal or partnering with us as a passive investor. If you have any questions or would like to learn more, leave us a comment and one of our team will reach out to you.